Hello, my name is Joseph Barber, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different. This month I've been covering a variety of horror movies, but a few days ago I watched the Joker movie that just came out, and I thought it was interesting enough that I wanted to do a little review on it. The Joker is a fascinating character who's been the main villain for Batman films since basically the start. I mean, it's not exactly the start, but within the first few years, Joker was initially a one off villain, but then became the enfranchised main villain of the franchise, starring in the TV show, the original 60s movie, Tim Burton's Batman in 1989, The Dark Knight in 2007. He was featured in Suicide Squad, and then, of course, most recently, Joker, which just came out just this year, a few weeks back, and stars Joaquin Phoenix or something. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his name, but something like that. And he's always been fairly interesting villain. He's crazy. That's the defining characteristic of him. But beyond that, you've got a variety of different origins from just sort of a mobster gone a little bit mad, and that's Jack Nicholson's interpretation. You've got the multi-choice background of Heath Ledger, which is also a fairly common comic theme, also used in the animated series. And then you have the Killing Joke as another example of an origin where it's just one bad day turns what was basically a normal guy into this mastermind evil genius who murders freely and does some fairly fucked up things on the scale of things. And so now we have this Joker movie, which is basically an intense examination of the character, just a very almost solo project from the main actor, as he does this deep interpretation of the character, I suppose. I mean, it's most similar to films like Taxi Driver or Nightcrawler, which are almost entirely focused on the main actually male characters who have this intense difficulty with fitting in with the world. They have something wrong with them. They don't understand the world. And you see that a lot in the Joker, which I'll talk about a bit later. But the basic story is there's this guy. He's been in a mental institution and has a number of problems. Takes a lot of medication. I think they're saying he's on 7 pills at once at the start of the film, which is not unheard of necessarily. It's definitely a lot, but he's got a lot of problems, and then things go significantly worse for him. He loses his job, his mother gets very sick, and then he has a few twisting revelations about his life where sort of everything he knew gets turned around again and again, and that's what truly drives him to the madness. And that's basically the story. Not a lot goes on. There's sort of this background of a trash strike and these riots that are inspired by some of his actions. But that's not really the focus of the film. The focus of the film's almost entirely on him. And there are a few very good, very tense moments that are basically the transition into him becoming the Joker as opposed to just some crazy guy, which is what he begins with. And I have to say, this is actually my favorite portrayal of the Joker. He seems like he's having so much fun with the character. Especially, he dances throughout the film. That's like a very common visual image that they use. And it's not necessarily happy dancing even. You have some of that at the end when he's truly transformed into this villain. But before that, you just have this odd dancing. It's sort of melodic, but also disturbing in a way. It seems just a little bit off, and that's a lot of the movements, and the way he speaks is just this little bit off. It is very disquieting, and it seems like he just doesn't quite fit in, as I said, just like a number of the films it's inspired by. And you can tell that with the way he views comedy. He wants to be a stand-up comic, but he doesn't really understand jokes, or at least how to tell them. He wants to make people laugh, he just doesn't know how. And he's got this really messed up laugh. The Joker laugh is very iconic. Uh, I want to say image, but it's not exactly an image. And he has a medical condition where he laughs. He can't control it. So it reminds me a bit of Old Boy, actually, which is the main character in that is inspired by a poster which says, "Laugh and the whole world laughs with you, weep and you weep alone." And oftentimes you'll have the Joker laughing and weeping at the same time as he can't control it, and it's so sad. And I feel like I had a very different experience than the rest of the theater. Maybe not everyone there, but oftentimes the other people, and I saw it in a fairly packed theater, they would be laughing at these moments that I just felt incredibly sad, and then I would laugh or do a small laugh when there were these very dark moments that just worked really well for me. So maybe that's just my messed up sense of humor, but there was one moment that we all agreed on where, spoilers I suppose, after the Joker kills this guy in front of this little person and then just lets him go because the little person was actually nice to him, like the only person in his sort of group that was genuinely kind to him, and he just lets him go. So he walks past the corpse, and then the door is locked. And of course, given his height, he can't actually reach it, so he turns around and asks him to unlock the door, and it's tense, but it's just so darkly funny because it's something we could almost expect, but in that expectation, it just works. Just that image of helplessness combined with the absurd situation of a killer just letting one person go after brutally murdering another. So that was definitely the funniest moment of the movie, and that was something we could all agree on. And I liked a lot of it's not a subtle movie. There's a lot of very over-the-top themes, and it beats you on the head with them. Class issues of the rich versus the poor, that's sort of the main theme of the movie, as well as mental health, how we don't deal with it well in the system, especially for poor people who can't afford the care. That's something basically explicitly said. And I think that's still an issue that's very prominent, not just in America, where the movie was made and where it is still a huge problem, but everywhere in the world. So I think it's good that this brings that to attention. And then there were the absurd media articles about how it encourages the behavior of being a lone wolf and murdering people, and it was just like the media wanted a mass shooting, like what happened with the last Batman movie, or not the last one, but a couple ago. And it's just absurd, and this film sort of satirizes that as well, at least the media, how they deal with killers. There's not much discussion about it, but there's a little that's interesting. And I also like how one small event starts everything, and I've heard a few reviewers talk about how that didn't feel right to them, but we look back through history and it's often one small thing that just gets picked up and things snowball and snowball, and eventually you get explosive protests like the current ones in Hong Kong, or the Occupy movement, or even World War I, which was started off with an assassination of someone who mattered, but it's a powder keg, I suppose, is the best way to describe the situation. So overall, I think it probably won't have the cultural reference or the cultural relevance of a movie like Taxi Driver. It won't be viewed as a classic, but I think in terms of a character study, it'll be viewed as well critically as Logan from a few years ago was viewed, and that was what I thought a very good movie. I think it has still had a lot of problems, and I think this movie has some problems with pacing and a few of the ways that characters relate to one another, like the tie-ins to Batman feel a bit forced, I suppose. I mean, it works okay. It's just we didn't need Batman in this movie, I don't think. I think it could have just been a Joker movie, and the rest of the events that transpired could have had no relation to him, though I think it was quite important that Joker was not the person who killed Batman's parents, unlike the Tim Burton movie, since it just, that would have significantly lowered it in my opinion, but to having it be inspired by him, I think works much better. And in fact, even sort of works better for Batman's eventual vengeance on him if they expand this universe, which I think I'd like to see them do. I'd actually like to see them do it from more of the villain's perspective, have maybe an Arkham movie basically about the it would basically be a Harley Quinn movie actually, but not like the recent Margot Robbie Harley Quinn movie, Suicide Squad and the Birds of Prey coming up, but a more, again, intense sort of look at what it can be like being a psychiatrist treating these crazy people, especially these people gone so far beyond the edge of reality that you give up on them or be twisted by them. I mean, I don't think it's the most realistic, but it's a comic, movie. Sometimes you have to break that suspension of disbelief. But overall, I would definitely rate it quite highly. If I had to give it a star rating, I'd probably go 4 out of 5. Those are just my initial thoughts. I don't know if I would watch it again necessarily soon. I'll probably watch it again when it comes out on DVD, give or take. But it's just a very solidly put together film. The cinematography is pretty good. The music's pretty good. There's no particular element I would criticize aside from the things I've already discussed. So yeah, overall, solid film. Would recommend you go see it. And that's my review of The Joker. I'm sorry I don't have anything visually to put up. I just wanted to have my thoughts out there and sort of put this review up. So that's me for today. I hope everyone has a nice day or a nice night, depending on where you are. Comment, subscribe, do whatever the YouTube shit is. Ta.